you? How are you
I'm
doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, how was it like for you to transition from your own self-made, um, small budget action scenes and productions to going into a bigger TV production and bringing your style into that as well? And that transition, how was it like for you?
Oh God, it was just magical and beautiful and everything and insane and you know,
Imagine.
I do love this space. I love the Blacklist. When I was selected have to direct on the Blacklist, I was over the moon. It was a project, it was a show that I really was a fan of. And I love that it was like little mini movies every week.
Same
Um
here, yeah.
yeah, and I think that it like you mentioned, it did kind of was very natural for me to come from having done a film like Lady Justice, which was, action packed in just like 8.5 minutes, to then do this. I think the transition, like, yes, like when you're doing short films, and you're financing your own projects, it's definitely a lot more challenging. You're trying to pull favor. So the focus is, for me also as a writer, director, and producer, is coming into like the producing aspect, right? Like, how can I make this project possible? So coming on to directing a TV show, you have to like lose a little bit of that producing background. There were
Yeah.
times where like I kind of wanted to like be
Mm.
a producer, but of course, like, no, I'm the director, which is very nice because now you just get to focus on directing and making the best possible episode, and really bringing out the story that the writer wrote, right? And trying to do it justice. So obviously the difference is money, and another thing with Lady Justice, that my short film, I did do that in a very fast pace, so it very much resembled a little bit of like or prepared me for going into the Blacklist, because you are hitting the ground running. You have 7 days of practice, 7 days of shooting, and it's very efficient on how you have to do things. So I think that Lady Justice definitely prepared me for that.
Oh, that's awesome. And when you came into this in the world of directing, did you have any female or male directors and their styles that you liked, that were inspirations for you, whether it was in terms of action or in terms of the drama and the emotional side of directing? Did you have anyone, or many, even
Yeah.
if you have
I
any?
had, I will say that I had many. I've been very fortunate that I've come up in television. I've worked in television for many years now, from working on the corporate side, the production side, post-production side. When I was, on Castle, I pretty much, like, yes, I did my job, but I also lived on set. Like,
Yeah.
I was learning from each director that was coming in, and there were so many talented directors, and many of them came to support me and guide me through the process. Like John Terlesky, who actually I shadowed as part of the program, was a huge mentor of mine, who was there from the very beginning of my first short film, giving me advice, like stepping into that, right? And I really did love the way that he shot. He was the most efficient director that I've come across. And another mentor that came out of Castle was Rob Bowman. Like, I actually moved into post production because of him, because he lived in post, and he was such an artist that I wanted to just be a sponge and taking everything that he had. So he was also very influential in the way I approached, even in television, because yes, it's efficient, but you also have to think as an artist, and you can't
Yeah,
lose yourself. You can't lose the
absolutely.
artistry, right? You have to think about lighting. Like, you don't just think about like, where am I going to put the camera? How is that visually? How am I going to affect you
Yeah.
watch a show? So I think that those two directors are, and I mention them just because I know them, right? And I think that they're very inspiring to me, and influential in also how I've come up as a director and how I shaped as a director.
Mm. And how do you want to like shape your own like voice now? Do you have like things that you want to add on that you feel like, you know, hasn't been done before, or something that with your touch, for example, is it like do you prefer focusing more, as you said, on the lighting a bit more, or is it like the way the camera works, or how do you feel like you want to, evolve that?
Yeah, I think visually, like I love to spend more time, with camera, and sometimes you don't get to do that on a television show, especially, on a on say, when you're on a 7-day shoot, right? Schedule. So yeah, absolutely. I think that I want to continue to exercise and practice and flex my creative muscles in how I am going to shoot something, and not just for the sake of like, oh, look at me, I can do this trick, and more of like, how can I also add the camera movement to how you're going to feel, because that's super important to me. I'm just so I'm an empath, and I think that anything that makes me cry or laugh or whatever, like I strive for that, right? Like, how am I
Yeah.
going to like stay on the shot longer so that you really are now in that person's head, right? So I think for me, in terms of how I'm going to continue shaping myself and growing, I think finding new ways of telling a story visually, as well as, I come from post, so of course with the mix, with the score, the sound effects, I got to work on an amazing show on Supergirl that
Oh,
allowed for that creativity, right? Of
yeah.
how, like, even in online sessions, like how am I going to enhance this, with just a little shake of digital camera move, right? Like whatever it was, I always wanted to um elevate and amplify whatever it is that that character is going through, or the story is trying to tell.
Yeah. And so now the Blacklist has been going very strongly for 10 seasons, and I've enjoyed the ride as well. It's been
Yes.
very fun, and the twists and the plots and everything. So when you came along and with your episode, what did you want to add on? Did you feel like that something that was missing, or like something that you wanted to enhance, even if it wasn't missing, something that you wanted to like add on to it, or like
Yeah, I
and
think
I know you said you come from a writing and producing background, but did that influence you in any way?
Yeah, I think that there's a storyline of the task force now being in jeopardy, right? I
Yeah.
think that was a lot of fun for me, because it's like, okay, how do I you know how do I tell this story in a, and also in a fun way, because it's like these four amazing characters with Hudson, Panabaker, Dorf, and Cooper. I think with those it was more of like this kind of this challenging, right? So I really wanted to emphasize that, and it's very subtle, of like the camera movements kind of, pushing in as like they're going back and forth, this little ping pong between them. And also like we shot I didn't even know how we were going to do this, but we shot in like the smallest office in the judge. I don't know if you watched the episode, but with the judge, I'm like, how are we going to put like the chairs in front of this desk? Like it's 4 chairs. And we managed to make it work. And that was another thing. It's like the awkwardness of them having to sit there, like I didn't want to just to like shoot. Obviously I'm shooting coverage, but I wanted to like start off the show with them just kind of, tracking along them, like they're just sitting for like the judge's decision. So yeah, so just like I think that it's sometimes challenging with the time that you're given, but adding a little bit of sauce, adding a little bit of like, how do I emphasize these like awkward moments, these challenging moments, these emotional moments, also with the characters of Red and Dembe, sitting down and
Yeah.
having that emotional beat, with Red, and pretty much with Red and anybody and everybody, right? Red and Manny, like that was also
Red is something else entirely. Like
yeah, yeah.
I'm just like,
And
I want to focus on him.
yeah, and those, I think that emotional moments for me are like it's why I watch television. Like what's at the heart, what's at the more relationships, right? Relationships are huge. Like what's between them? How can I show that on screen?
Absolutely. I really so yeah, thank you so much for your time. I'm really looking forward to more women of color entering the space of directing, and showing their talent and their ability to also have a space in this amazing world of TV and movies, or wherever your career takes you. So all the best with that, and I'm looking forward to seeing the episode.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.